Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Well, my trip to Blackpool was incredibly successful. It was short and sweet. Short and sweet is an idiom we use to talk about things which didn't last very long but were extremely pleasurable. All in all, my trip to Blackpool was successful. All in all simply means to sum up or to conclude, and that's a handy phrase, especially if you're doing one of the English exams. Now, while I was away, I was looking over my podcast statistics, and I can see that podcasts regarding motivation are by far the most popular compared to others. So I'd like to focus in on motivation again today, just so that we can talk about it and look at how you can move forward with your English. Now, first of all, I honestly believe that motivation is not the problem. Because if you're motivated to get up in the morning, if you're motivated to watch TV, if you're motivated to go to work, if you're motivated to cook for the children, then motivation is there. So to say, oh, I'm not motivated or I don't have motivation isn't quite right. It may be true to say I'm not motivated to learn, but then the problem is not really motivation. The problem is, why are you not motivated? Is it about time? Is it about concentration? Is it about something else, maybe? Not knowing your level, not using the correct material to learn with. Those of us who try to learn alone often get a little bit stuck because you don't know how to take your English on to the next level. And then there's all kinds of expectations of language exchange partners. Oh, maybe this just isn't the right person I'm talking to. Maybe this isn't the right book I'm using. Maybe this isn't the right teacher that I have. And all these kind of doubts start to raise, or I should say, start to rise. And before you know where you are, suddenly English is kind of left behind. To avoid all of these things, what you really need to do is to track yourself using a tool such as Excel, or even writing down in a book or on a computer the days that you don't study. So, first of all, have a plan. For example, Monday I will study between 8 and 9 for 1 hour. Tuesday I will study between 12 and 1 for 1 hour. Write it down what your plan is. If you can't be so specific, just be more general. I'll study English for 10 minutes today, let's say. Okay? And then review it at the end of the day or the end of the week. Did you manage to do that? Did you study English for that hour or for that day? And if not, why not? Now, a few things are going to come out of this. Very good information, I think. Once you have this information, you'll see that either you're not studying at the correct time, or you simply don't have the time. Maybe you were distracted by your kids. Maybe you just went for the TV and you said, oh no, I can't face English today. But whatever happened, it'll give you a real insight there into your mind. So once you have that information, the question is, what do you do with it? Okay. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people out there, they just use this information as a tool to punish themselves. English becomes almost like an extension of work. Oh, this is a project I've started. I'm not meeting my goal. I'm less than 0. 0.01% in terms of how much I've achieved. And they start going into this kind of shame cycle. And when that happens, it becomes uh, very disturbing because it's all hooked up to morality. And then it's almost like you get that whip, and you start forcing yourself to do more. And this circle of good and bad, of achieving and underachieving, becomes a way of learning, and that really isn't productive. So I would say put the punishment tool down and really see this information that you've accumulated as a tool for growth. See it as a gift to yourself about what times are best for studying, what material is best for studying. I had a student last week and she told me honestly, I just can't study. She said, I don't have time. I don't particularly want to. So a lesson with a teacher is all I have, and I'm happy with that. And that's fine for her. That's all she wants to achieve. That's fine. That's perfect. The amount of English that she accumulates from that lesson is largely dependent, of course, on what she does with it and other factors like whether she keeps notes of new words during the lesson or whether the type of lesson itself is beneficial or whether she just honestly doesn't know. But if you have information that you've accumulated about what you're using to study and whether that is something which is bringing you joy, then for sure you're going to learn a lot about yourself there. Also about being organized and the time that you have to study. You can learn a lot about yourself and about your daily life. So the first step is almost certainly trying to accumulate information about your study time. Where it gets difficult for teachers is if you come to a lesson unprepared and you tell me, well, you know what, Teacher Joseph, last week was a bad week. I've not been able to do any homework. Now, when people tell me that, it's usually not about it being a bad week. It usually means that for whatever reason, they just didn't or couldn't do it. I honestly don't believe that someone is so busy from 6 in the morning till midnight that they can't find time to do homework. So it could mean that there's something deeper there, some deeper issue, maybe at home, with your time, with motivation. I don't know. It could be many things. But these are the kind of things that you can use to get yourself into some kind of learning cycle. If you do this and you discover that you really, really don't want to learn, then probably it's just about your learning materials. English at every turn should be bringing you joy. Okay, there should be a little spark there that says, oh, nice, I love that. And if that isn't there, then something isn't right. So maintain your joy level and always make sure that when you're recording information about how much you learned or how much you didn't learn, put something in there about your mood. Did English bring you joy on that day? And if it didn't, something is wrong. Okay, so how you fix that largely depends on what the problem is. But if you are finding English to really be pulling you down in a very negative way, it's probably not about motivation or time. It probably means that you just don't have the right learning materials. Now, let's just move on from there for a minute because there's something else that I want to tell you about as well regarding motivation. And that, as I mentioned last time, is about your mental atmosphere. Now, we've been through this before, and many of us in other areas of our lives have difficulties. That might mean getting the children off to school, something as basic as that. It could also mean an unhappy situation with a relationship. It could be something more serious, like a community torn apart by war or these kind of worries. I don't think that these kind of issues um, are very helpful when it comes to the learning experience. And so I would invite you to be really real with yourself, because if you are in a particularly unhappy situation, this just might not be the time for you to be learning. Maybe you should just give yourself a break for a few weeks, especially if English is bringing you stress. Okay, so if you feel really pented up with anger at the sight of the English book, something needs to change. Don't sit down and force yourself, okay? Maybe give yourself a few days, look at the tools you're using, and also re examine what it is in that mental atmosphere. Is it a gaze or a look from family members who are doubting your ability to learn? Is it because there's a possibility that something could be happening in your community in the coming days, and you need to be ready for that? When those kind of things come up, you really need to be real with yourself, okay? Because to learn English, you need to have some kind of calm atmosphere which doesn't have a lot of suspicion around you. And there's those constant voices in our heads which sometimes say, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. Even though you might be doing it very well, these voices sometimes are implanted into us by the media, they're implanted into us by our family members, not in a way to harm us. It's just that they don't share our vision, that they don't share where we're going. And that's something that you need to be aware of, okay? So in your family, you can't expect them all to be clones of you, okay? But there should be some room there for you to be able to learn without any kind of hostility or any kind of mind games which might be lowering your confidence. If you're finding that at home, then just go out and go to the library and study instead. In fact, many people find that by going somewhere, even the coffee shop, allows them some kind of a break from the people and the places that they're usually around. So that's another possibility. As I've often mentioned before, trying to sandwich English in between two business meetings equally doesn't work, because usually what happens is your mental state is still quite distracted by the other meetings, that by trying to push English in between becomes just egotistical. Tick the box, yeah, went to that meeting, had my English lesson, done the next one. English isn't like that. And if you lower it down into some kind of commodity where it can be fitted into your business day, it doesn't really give it the merit that it deserves. English really needs time to be practiced, not just to be fitted in. And many people I know out there who are in jobs that they really, really don't like, they'll put English in there because maybe the teacher makes them happy, or maybe because it's a nice distraction. But to be honest with you, it rarely works, because when we're at work, our mind is too wrapped up, especially if we're in managerial positions or if our boss is making demands. You can leave that and go to English, but from what I can see, and I've had many students who are in offices trying to learn, there's always distractions. Oh, excuse me, I have a boss who's calling me. Excuse me, I have a phone call to take. Excuse me, but I have an email to answer. And the worst one, from a teacher's point of view, is when you see the student looking out the meeting room window and waving to their colleagues. It shows me again that they're not present with me, you know. So these are just things for you to think about, but really priorities and the kind of mental atmosphere you've created for yourself. These are two of the main things which you need when trying to learn. Okay, so just to quickly recap before we finish, keeping some kind of record of how you're feeling on particular days at moments when you should be learning English, or keeping a record of your joy level when you are learning, also thinking about the kind of material that you're using if you're not with a teacher. These things can be incredibly insightful. They can also highlight whether you're having any mental health problems. Let's say, for example, you get up in the morning, you promise yourself you're going to learn English, but yet you just don't. It could be a sign of unhappiness, maybe something a little bit deeper. These are things that you really need to be tracking to become aware, because I've had students, for some of them for months and for years, who just tell me the same thing, that they don't get anywhere, that their English isn't going to any place. Creative people especially need inspiration for learning. They can't just wake up in the morning and learn. So these are the kinds of things that you need to be capturing and examining. Even if you do nothing with that information, you need to know what it is. And my second point there is about your mental atmosphere. If you're sitting in a room that's untidy or dirty, you know it needs to be cleaned, get it done. Also, if you're in a meeting room at work, staring out the window with your colleagues, waving at you on the way past or whatever, getting emails from your boss while you're talking to me, once or twice that might be okay, but if it happens all the time, a teacher is likely to challenge you with that and will be asking, are you sure this is the right time for you to learn? Because I don't sense that it is, maybe. So getting the correct mental atmosphere is really important, especially if you're in an unhappy situation. Even if you are in a place where it's not safe, maybe there's community problems, get yourself out, go for a walk, just for a little while if you possibly can. If you can't do any of those things because you're stuck at home, at least try to study at a time then when you won't be disturbed, okay? Or have a very frank conversation with your family about their feelings about your learning, especially if you're picking up negativity at home. And if you really, really can't change any of those, just take a break for a few days and come back to the table when you're ready. And the information you uncover about yourself by looking at both these points is really important. But what's more important is you see it as a tool for growth. You've learned something about yourself that you can build on, that you can move forward with. For some of you who are really busy, that might mean letting go of some things or people which are no longer serving you. And on the other hand, it might also mean giving priority to some other things, but bringing other people in to help you. That will free up your time for English as well. Okay, so be real with yourself is the message for today. Don't be thinking that this is a problem which can't go away. We all struggle with motivation, but we just need to find the tools and the things which work for us And as I'm always saying, check your joy level. If you're not experiencing joy when you're learning, something's wrong. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If you're someone that loves music, don't be looking at farming magazines. Okay, if you're someone that loves farming, why would you be studying with music? So just get your priorities right. Okay, see you. Bye.